All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show. And I couldn't be more excited about today's show because the man that you are about to listen to teaches people to put the heart back in marketing. And I knew it from the day that we met that we would be BFFs for life, even though he's on the other side of the world, like a 13-hour flight. We'll make it happen at some point, though. But I am super stoked to be joined by my friend Jurgen, who literally has been doing what I'm doing probably longer than me, and in most cases that I find better than me, and I'm going to give him credit where it's due because I go read his emails, watch his content, listen to his podcast, and I am super excited to have him. So Jurgen, welcome to the show.
Thanks, George, and it's a real privilege to be here, and I have to say that when I discovered you and I got you on my show, I was like, wow, this guy understands my language, and I've been so inspired by what you've done since then. I've been in your programs and taken on board a lot of what you teach, and that's just elevated what I do to another level.
Yeah, man, I haven't started a podcast with a compliment fest yet, but I do remember specifically, and I'm going to give everybody a nugget here. I remember when I was like, I get introduced to you, I found you, looked you up, and then I went to your website and I opted in. And I just remember being like, I need to step my customer journey email game up in my own world. Like, I remember seeing the wheel and the way that you broke things down, the way that you taught things. Like, I literally felt like I was being chauffeured with like a black glove service or white glove service, like through your world. And it was like the most warming, touching, and quite frankly, it was probably one of the best experiences I've had as a consumer without knowing the person. Because everybody asks me all the time, like, what emails do you recommend? Like, who has the best examples? Like, who does it the best? And I'm like, it's kind of hard to find some that like do it the best, but the way that you do it I always say this wrong, Innova Buzz, right? I get it?
Yeah, Innova Biz is the business.
Innova Biz. Okay. Innova Biz at Innova Biz was just like really beautiful. Like I remember I sent it to my team. I'm like, hey, I'm super stoked to go on his show. I was like, we got to step our game up. You got to get me to write emails again. I was like, because I got to step this up now. And then it was actually like a really fun talking point. So for everybody listening, I'm going to let you know where to find Jurgen in a couple minutes, but make sure you go check it out. He has an awesome podcast and a website. And so as you know, because you listen to the show, I want to get right into it. What is the biggest mistake that you have ever made in business, and what did you learn?
That's a difficult question. I've made lots of them. I think probably, if I step it up and say, what's the common theme of all the mistakes I've made? It's kind of like not knowing when to trust my gut and then trusting my gut at the wrong time. And, it comes back to doubting myself, doubting the decisions. And sometimes, there's opportunities come up and I step back from them and say, I'm not good enough for that. Or why would they listen to me? Or why would they want to work with me? And other times it's something where I make a really quick decision and don't do enough analysis. And it turns out to be the wrong decision. So it's really not trusting my instincts and then not knowing when do I grab an opportunity or when do I analyze it further. So I'd say I would summarize several big mistakes in that vein.
I think it's an important topic to unpack, though, because like when you say that, I'm like, oh, me too, right? And I'm sure there's thousands of hands like, me too, me too, me too. And I think it's a really, one of the things that I love about, like when we connect or just talking about entrepreneurship in general is the fact that no matter where you are on the spectrum of like success, business, what industry you're in, how far along you are, and like these things come, these thoughts, these fears, these insecurities. And the reason I say that is because I don't think they're mistakes. They're always lessons. They're growth points. And so when you think about that now, you've been able a few times to look at like, I rushed that and I was reactive, or, look, I almost robbed myself of an opportunity. But do you have anything that you do now, like when something comes, like you're like, oh, there's this big opportunity that like you bake it in or you support yourself through it, or you get to this big decision point and you're like, oh, breath, I need to pause. Let me look at this. So what do you do now that you're aware of it, right? What do you do now to kind of mitigate that or keep yourself in the direction, knowing that a lot of the times you're still probably like, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but for me, like someone's like, "Oh, you're going on that podcast." I'm like, "Me? You want me on that pod? Why would you want me on that podcast?" Like and they're like, "Shut up," right? And I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll go," right? But how do you navigate those waters now, like moving forward to allow yourself to grow through that and also be aware of that pattern?
Yeah, it's a great question and long discussion. I've done a lot of work with my business coach who teaches NLP, and I've done all levels of NLP. I'm pretty close to getting my trainer's qualification, and I want to use that in my own training work. But with the NLP, there's a lot of work you do on yourself, and one of the core beliefs in NLP, one of the core presuppositions is that you're either at cause or you're at effect. So at cause is that I can take control of the things I control. At effect is I make excuses. So it's everybody else's fault. So this happened, it's somebody else's fault. I look for somebody to blame. So I've very much, whenever I get into oh, woe is me, or oh, why did that happen to me? That was unnecessary, or that's so unfair. Whenever I get into that, so I catch myself and I say, no, hang on. Did I contribute to that happening? And if I did, how can I correct it? And if I didn't contribute to it happening, what can I do to make the best of this situation? So that's usually the first one. Now, there's a lot of self-awareness involved in that. And the self-awareness part also then plays into, if I'm having a conversation in my head, and I have lots of conversations in my head, then I kind of reflect on that. And I do the pause, have a breath. Okay, why am I thinking that? Why am I thinking I'm not good enough to go on here? And often, like you said, a lot of people feel that way. So that's one thing that sometimes I tell myself in that situation. They've had, I don't know how many hundreds of guests on this podcast, and probably every one of them jumped on it and was nervous at the beginning and said, I'm not sure I'm good enough for this. So I'm no different from anybody else in that respect. So let me get on there and give the best value I can give.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that one, but it reminds me of something I was journaling earlier, and I was in like a pretty reflective state because, at 3:30 in the morning when I get up to go to the gym, nobody else in the world is awake, right? Like even my buddy who owns the gym, he's like, all right, listen, here's a key. Here's the alarm code. Do not text me to disarm the alarm again. I can't believe you're at the gym this early. But I was like sitting there reflecting, and I've been thinking a lot about this lately. And it was, I wrote down, I was like, I am who I am, not who I think I am. And I wrote it like 5 times because it was like, it wasn't even registering, right? Because like, there's who we are, like you talked about, right? Like you attracted that interview. You attracted that opportunity. You created it. And then the moment it comes to fruition, it's like, wait, do I deserve it? And like, that's the thinking of it. Like who you are is what brought it on. Who you think you are, or at least for me, is what like starts to doubt it. And so like, I've been reminding myself lately, like I am who I am, not who I think I am. And it's been really powerful for me. And I don't know about you, but there's a lot of times. And so for everybody listening, Scott Carney just wrote a new book called The Wedge. It's one of my favorite things. The reason I do cold therapy is to train my nervous system. So when I get hit with like a fear or an insecurity, I don't immediately like react like, oh my God, burn the ships. I can kind of pause. But he calls the wedge, and it's what Jurgen was talking about is that pause period of like, noticing, like awareness, right? The name of the game is getting to awareness so you can have the opportunity to win the game because, reactions don't ever work. And most of the time, it's this, I think it was Jim Quick who said, Jim Quick, or a study that I read, I think it's 82% of all memory is made up, right? It's an illusion that's like stitched together with neural pathways. And so most of the time I've just learned to not even believe it anymore. And so I don't know about you, but there's times where I'm like, hey, shut up. Like, just go, right? Like, just get into action and go. So I absolutely love that, Jurgen. And before we get any deeper into this, because I'm about to unpack something else, I don't like making people wait till the end to find out how awesome you are and where to find you. And since you study NLP, let's seed it now, and we'll seed it like 16 times by the time that you're done, and I'll explain to everybody why we're doing that. But for anybody that wants to find out more about you, where's the best place to find you?
So the best place is go and check out my podcast, and that's innovabuzz.com. So it's confusing because InnovaBiz is the business, but InnovaBuzz, INNOVABUZZ.
So I wasn't crazy. No. I did. Okay, no. Got it. So it's INNOVABUZZ.com.
That's correct.
Got it. Okay, cool. So I thought I was losing I was like, I thought I knew the name. I thought I knew it. You planted a seed of doubt, Jurgen. I created my own dissonance, and now you get to change my mind. And so,
That's a Zeigarnik effect,
yes,
right?
that's Zeigarnik effect.
I
So,
opened a loop.
yeah. So for everybody wondering what Jurgen was talking about, just in case you're not familiar with NLP, I don't talk about it, but NLP stands for neuro-linguistic programming, and basically you can program your thoughts become your beliefs, which become your actions, right? So we can program ourselves. We can utilize it to shift people, change people. A good example is the book, The Catalyst by Jonah Berger, that I tell all of you to read, except he's not sharing all the tactics and strategies. He's just talking about the book. So Jurgen, when you now think about this stuff, so biggest mistake, lesson learned was, okay, cool. Probably most of that is bullshit and I don't have to believe it. And I deserve to be here and I do it. But now, is there something from that you took forward that you practice, right? You interview a lot of people. You are up to a lot of big stuff. You're doing a lot of amazing things in the world of marketing and business. You're launching programs. You're launching courses. Like, you just seem to always be grounded, steady, ready to go, crystal clear. And are there any things that you've taken in from those lessons, like to practice as a part of your day, that like are kind of non-negotiables for you, that keep you kind of grounded or in the best place you can to move forward as a business leader, entrepreneur?
Yeah, I guess it's just really the way I see myself and how I'm more aware of myself and my thoughts and what I make those mean. So I've always loved reading and learning. I mean, I'm a lifelong learner. I've spoken to a number of people recently on my podcast, and they talked about be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. And I think, oh, I love that. Heard it about 3 times now, so I've taken it on board as a mantra. So that's always been in my makeup. Now I look at those things a lot different. I take things in a lot different. I internalize a lot more. And one of the things that I think I've changed coming out of NLP, I'm an introvert, and I kind of go inside to get my energy and recharge. And I used to be that used to manifest itself in that I found it difficult to talk to people. I found it, and part of that was that imposter syndrome. And I found it difficult then to actually grow a relationship from an initial introduction. And that's certainly changed now. I've sort of learned how to connect with people in a way that starts a really meaningful conversation very quickly. And so then it doesn't matter whether I'm an introvert or whether the other person's an introvert or whether they're an extrovert and I can't stop them talking, because I can understand, I can kind of gauge their response to what I say, and that'll give me a bit of an idea of their beliefs, their what drives them, how they're motivated, and then I can establish that connection really quickly. And I'm seeing that playing out really well in our podcast, where I've actually banned the word interview, so they're conversations.
Yeah.
But when I get somebody on, and 9 times out of 10, they're people I've never met before, and yet within about 3 sentences, we're hitting it off really well. There's a great relationship there, and usually there's a really meaningful conversation that ensues.
Yeah, I love it. And there's a theme and a tone here, right? So for everybody listening, a couple minutes ago I was talking about how good Jurgen is at customer journeys and the way he does marketing and putting the human back into marketing. And I want to tie this together because I don't want to leave it unturned, but in my opinion, the dead-on, nailed target of success when it comes to business and marketing and understanding your customers is not focusing on your customers, it's focusing on yourself. It's being deeper in a relationship with yourself, understanding your triggers, your thoughts, your processes, because at that stage, when you're a constant student of myself, like you're studying NLP, you're going through business coaching, you're getting certified, you're finding these belief systems that you have, these paradigms that you have, these thought processes that you have, these triggers that you have, it's just allowing you to better empathize and understand what's happening on the other side of that, which is why I think you're so good, like just personally at marketing, is your your commitment to being that lifelong student. And so, for everybody listening, this is, I haven't talked about this on a podcast yet, but you guys have heard me say it. I did that keynote. I was like, nobody has a marketing problem. Everybody has a relationship problem with themselves, their team, and their customers. And it's one of those things where, most of the success that I've had, like the skyrockets, And then the crashes came from doing it for the wrong reasons, avoiding working on myself. And then the ones that have been sustainable and long-term and easy have all come from basically being in alignment with myself, getting deeper and deeper into that. And so it actually brings me to something I want to talk to you about today, which I feel like from anybody I've met, and I know a lot of people, I don't think I've met anybody that embodies the thesis of like reciprocity and giving without anything in return except you. Like you're one of the shining examples that I see, the way that you interview people, the way that you follow up with people, like the genuine care and nature and everything that you touch, your content, your podcasts, your website. So can you talk me through kind of your mind around putting the human back into marketing and like how you see reciprocity and how you see giving value to your customers without expectation in return?
Yeah, great question. I'll just step back for a moment because I think this is relevant to that question, and that's around the NLP. And one of the things that I did, and you do this throughout the training, is get real clarity on your own values, and then look at do those values serve you? And there's actually methods where you can change values. So if you've got a value, for example, I had a value around money. I had this belief, some limiting beliefs that I had to work really hard to get money. And, you had to work hard to get money, and it didn't grow on trees. I was brought up with money doesn't grow on trees, and you shouldn't be, wasting water, or you shouldn't be opening the door when the heating's on because money doesn't grow on trees. That was always reinforced. So, so you have these values, and if you're not living in alignment with your values, then that's where you start to feel bad. In the extreme case, people actually make themselves sick.
Totally.
I mean, they get cancer, or they get heart problems, or whatever it might be, because the unconscious mind is protecting them from going against their values. So understanding that is really important. So I've done a lot of work there, and I often, if I'm feeling bad or down or in conflict, I always step back and look at that and say, is it one of my core needs that's not being met, or am I living out of alignment with some of my values? And that always helps me identify, where am I going off track? So in terms of the giving and the reciprocity, I mean, it comes back to the core of I sometimes have a fairly short fuse and temper when I, for example, go on a website and I want to do something and it's really hard to do. Particularly, I mean, I did one recently where I bought some wine for my son who's in San Francisco, and I bought him some wine from a winery in Sonoma where last time I was there, we went there, had a great day, so there's a whole emotional connection to this winery. And the wine we tasted, there was one super wine that we both enjoyed. So there's a whole emotional connection why I wanted this particular wine. And I went to buy this, and it was so difficult. Now, if there hadn't been this strong emotional connection, I wouldn't have persevered and went through. But I think I spent about 3/4 of an hour just buying these 2 bottles of wine. And if he's listening to this, it was worth it. But just having that experience, I thought, why do they make it so difficult? Here I am, I want to give them some money. Why are they making it so difficult? And whenever I have experiences like that, I actually go off my rocker pretty quickly, and I say, damn it, this is annoying, and why are they wasting my time? What right have they got to waste my time? So my whole philosophy is, if somebody interacts with you in whatever way it is, make it as easy as possible for them. Take away all the barriers, make it as easy as possible. And then in terms of the giving, so that the traditional kind of lead funnel, if you like, type approach to marketing is you give away something that people are interested in, and then you start to build a relationship on top of that because they've given you their email for that. Now, in the early days of my business, I'd do that, and I had a lead magnet that I thought was pretty good, and people would download it. I was getting lots of downloads, but nothing was really happening, and I'd be really disappointed, and I'd tinker around, and it's just not getting me results. And at some point, and part of this was NLP as well, I said, well, what if I just did the best I could, gave them the best I could, followed up with a whole lot of value the best I could, and just didn't expect anything in return, because then I'm not going to be disappointed. And I started doing that. And what happened was all of a sudden people started to come into my customer journeys and said, can I get more of this, or can I buy something here, or can you help me out with a service? And I realized that, if you don't have the expectations, then you're not disappointed. But also people sense that. People sense that you're only giving them something because you're expecting something in return.
Yeah.
Whereas if they realize that, hey, you're just there to help them, and if they need help in the area of your expertise, you're there for them. And if they want more help, at some point there's a threshold that they have to cross, which means paying some money.
Mm-hmm.
But before that threshold, they've already got a heap of value.
There's so much gold in everything you said. One of the things I wrote down, shitty marketing will make you sick. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, shitty marketing will make you sick. Just don't do it. And by the way, there's a lot of science to this, just understanding your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. But I am not a health food blogger anymore, and I do not run a health company. So I'm going to keep that one out of this episode. And Jurgen, there's a couple really key points that you made. One of them I laugh at now. It's insane to me how many companies, entrepreneurs, and people I see that literally make it difficult to become a customer. Like, they literally make it difficult. And this is going to sound really silly to a lot of you listening, but when I go into a company, when I do consulting, one of the first things I do is I sit the entire team down and we go through the entire buying process as a customer. And you will be shocked, because 9 out of 10 times, none of them have ever been through it. They have no idea that Shopify default has 9 steps to checkout. Just, that's default out of the box. And I was like, that is 8 more steps than should be required, and you're just pushing people away. And so for everybody listening to this, don't ever forget, and this applies to everyone in your business. I know Jurgen's going to thumb this one up, so I'm going to take this one. You need to test everything from a customer experience perspective, and you need to go through it. And you need to ask yourself, can this be easier? Does this make sense? Is this crystal clear? When you give somebody instructions, make sure that you follow them. When you're going to send an email, check your email. Send it to a test thing like LockApps. How was it received? How did it look in this browser? How did it look in this browser? You build your website on desktop, you might as well check mobile, since 90% of your traffic's going to be on mobile. Like, you have to remember that customer experiences dictate everything. And so you have 2 things in a customer journey. I actually never talked about this before. Where it's coming out, Jurgen, you bring it out of me. You have a container and you have content. We talk a lot about the content of the customer journey, hand walking people, making it easy, but you also have to remember you have a container, and that container, how they feel, what the experience is like. There's a whole lot of subconscious actions that your customers take in your container, and you want them not to realize they're taking it. You don't want somebody like, oh, I had to click a button. You just want it to feel natural. And so you have to go through that experience to create a container to where it just seems easy, like you being able to buy 2 bottles of wine without it feeling like a pain in the ass. And then once you feel like it's easy and it's safe and it's predictable, like Apple would be somebody who nails UI or UX, user experience, user interface, right? Once you make sure that the container is there, then you have kind of the wrapping paper or the housing container for the content, which is where like the magic and the rubber meets the road. But there's this concept called broken window syndrome. And I've talked about this publicly before, just never on the podcast, where if you're showing somebody an investment property like a house, right, and you pull up to the house and the yard's trash, the house is trash, and all the windows are intact, and you sit there and talk about potential, they're only going to see potential because that's what they see. But when you pull up and then the windows are broken, the front door's missing, and you don't really frame anything, they'll go through that house and they will find every single thing that can't be fixed. And it all is framed by those touch points. And so I do have to ask, Jurgen, what were the 2 bottles of wine, or what were the type of wine?
It was from a company called Mill Creek Vineyard in Sonoma, and it was their 2017 Zinfandel.
Yep, that's why we're friends. We're red people. I've had their wine before. And so
if you go there, let them know that their online ordering process needs some work.
I'm pretty sure they're going to know sooner than later. I'll send this to them. My favorite thing is when I start calling people out, I'm like, we'll just send them the episode. Be like, listen, we want to support you. Just listen. And then just call Jurgen and I and hire us for consulting.
Yeah. Having said that, I will give them a shout out. When we went there, we had an awesome experience on the day we actually visited them. It's a fabulous winery. We were out in the garden. They, their wine tasting's up on the first floor. They brought every single wine that we had on our tasting flight down to us. they said, would you like to try anything else? And we said, oh, that one was nice. What's the earlier vintage of that one like? They brought that with no extra charge. So the experience when we were there was fantastic. But
Yeah.
they
And
need to do something with their online.
And I think that
So,
actually, like, there's two things in that, Jurgen. I think you nail this in a lot, and like we'll see eye to eye on this one. Is when we think about it, a lot of companies think about customer experience only in the frame of where they see and touch the customer. Restaurants, wineries, grocery stores, things like that, without realizing that everything that happens outside of that container dictates how well that experience is in that container, right? Like
that's right.
that winery.
And if I hadn't had the earlier experience and didn't have that emotional attachment to the wine, I would have given up probably 5 minutes into that experience and said, I'll go find another one.
Totally. And then even so, like, we talk a lot about social triggers and marketing, right? They actually made it harder for you to go basically shout off the rooftops how amazing it was, because you have to think about, oh my God, if I recommend this to my friend, I have to let them know, oh, I don't want them to go through a 45-minute checkout and then they're going to associate like a pain in the ass with me. And so then you're like, you know what? Never mind. I'll let you taste it. And then it's probably like, hey, taste it, but don't buy it online. Wait till you go in person.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't think about that. And like, I think it's such an important thing to understand that a customer journey isn't where you want it to happen. A customer journey is wherever it happens and your customers interact with you, which is why you have to think about all of it. Like the amount of restaurants I see, right? They have Yelp and then they have people posting photos, posting everything, and they never go respond ever. And I'm like, you do realize, like, I don't know about any of you guys listening, but the entire way that we pick restaurants is I give my wife a list of ones that I approve of. She opens Yelp and scrolls through photos, and that's it. And whenever there's a photo that looks good, she's like, that's where we're going. And I'm like, that's the entire process. I don't care about price. I don't care who the chef is. I don't care what any of that is. And it's shocking to me how many echo chambers there are in companies when it comes to customer journeys, right? And so with you and that winery, I think it's just such a valid point when we talk about customer journeys. Now, before we got into the winery, what we were talking about, and I want to unpack this because of your background in NLP and how you see this. We were talking about how, really when you think about reciprocity or adding value to add value, it works on all fronts better because people can feel that. Like, people can feel that. And so when you are like, hey, I'm giving you this PDF or this 7-step guide, people feel like, oh, here it comes, right? I'm going to get upsold. I'm going to get boom. I'm going to get one email that I'm not going to hear from them for 4 days. And then they're going to sell me something, right? Like, you can feel it across the board.
Yeah.
And so in your experience now, because you've been doing this for a while and you and I have talked about this, in your experience now, have you found that by literally living like value on the front, like, hey, here's where it is. You know where to find me. Here's where it is. You know where to find me. You know how I can help you. Has that had like a maximum positive return on the business and the conversions in the company, but also on like your sanity and the way in which you look at creating content and putting it out there?
Yeah, definitely. So it's certainly, I mean, I'm getting in front of people that I never would have dreamed of getting in front of. I still need to deal with the imposter syndrome. Why would that person listen to me or work with me? But it's certainly, expanded my whole horizon of people that I get in front of now and people that actually interact with me and then talk to me. And also the sanity part, yes, it's definitely helped that as well.
Well, like
I was thinking back, I had
ahead.
a moment of brilliance the other day, and I was thinking back to what I wrote, because I'm kind of thinking, how do I incorporate this little mantra into my whole stack? And it's that marketing is the art and science of creating and sustaining exceptional customer experiences and relationships. And I thought, because that comes back to my background as a scientist, and then the neuroscience as well that goes into some of the beliefs behind all of that. And I think that actually encapsulates the whole thing, because marketing's not just about making a sale or about getting attention and getting people into a funnel, which the funnel concept I think is dated. I did a podcast on my other podcast where Russell Brunson, with his new book, I can't remember the title of his new book.
Traffic Secrets?
Yeah, it's the next one,
Yeah.
the recent one he just
Yeah.
launched.
Sure.
Anyway, is it Traffic
It's
Secrets?
Traffic Secrets.
Yeah. And they were looking for people to promote it, so I said I'll help promote it and I'll do a podcast episode on it. And they gave me a couple of sections, audio sections to use. And so I used one section which wasn't too bad, but I prefaced the whole thing and I said, traffic is people and funnels are people and traffic is customers.
Mm-hmm.
And, turned that whole around. So the whole idea of traffic and funnels is kind of language that I think takes the wrong approach to marketing.
Totally. And there's a lot here. One of the things being too, what I find personally is that, like, we're entrepreneurs, right? You and I both teach marketing. We have similar beliefs, similar values, but we have different voices. We have different delivery methods, right? And what I love about the way in which we do marketing, for everybody listening to this, when you take that value-based, you eliminate your thought process of, like, how can I position this, or how do I say this so they opt in, or how to, like, and really you're just turning off your authentic voice or your wisdom. And so what I also love is that when you play the reciprocity game, it's just a documentation of your voice and delivery, which magnetizes and attracts the right customer. Because I've played in all these lenses, right? I've played on all the fields. And there's been times even my best of friends have gotten me to be like, here's my 3 secrets. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad I got 150 people that will never talk to me ever again. Ever. Because, like, once that touch point's over, there's no alignment, nothing whatsoever. And so what I love about that, and to kudos and credit, because I think it's such an important topic that everybody should understand, you also nail the fact that and by the way, your scientific answer of marketing, I'm going to have to, like, study that thing so I can repeat it. I'm glad that you have that in your brain. That was a lot. When you think about it, what you're really taking into account is the fact that you're creating a container or a bucket or a net or, a safe home, that it doesn't matter how long the journey takes. It's that they are on the journey, and whenever they're ready, like you said earlier, they cross that threshold, then they know what the next escalation path is. And that goes against what half the bullshit we see in our industry, right? It's like, get more AOV on the front, or, my EPC is this, so you can upsell this and downsell this and then get this. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Like, just shut up. Like, that's my grandmother. I'm going to let her kick you in the teeth if you keep talking like this, right? Like, there's nowhere in that. And so I have to agree with you that the concept of funnel, in the way that it's taught, in my opinion, is very broken, because it's very transactional. It's very, like, it's very robotic, right? Like, I think some of the people that teach it, if I literally replaced, like, traffic with their kid's name, I don't think they would teach it the same, right? Or if their kids were coming through my quote unquote funnel, right? The way that I think about it with the lighthouse is, like, a funnel is just a cone of light, and the wider, the further away you are, the wider it is to catch you. And then as you get closer and closer, we get aligned, we have the right values, we're working on the same things. And then whenever you're ready, you kind of tilt in. So if you're against the funnel term, which I'm all for, how do you define it? Like, when you think about launching a product, when you think about a customer journey, like, how do you think through that process from your experience and then the customer's experience, so we can accomplish the same thing, but we're not talking about it like we're trading humans here on the internet?
Yeah. Well, what we have is a 12-step marketing framework that we use, and that's the circle you mentioned earlier. And I've actually taken the lighthouse in to step 1 of that, which, because I love the metaphor and I love the work you do in that, because it's a lot of self-reflection stuff. And I've added some more to that. So in your lighthouse, you talk about the why, the business why and the personal why, the what in very high level terms, and how you do it again in very high level terms. So what I've added into that, at the base of that, is who am I? And I go through an exercise where we do, and this comes from NLP, which, for example, I'm a man, but I'm so much more than that.
Totally.
I'm a marketer, but I'm so much more than that. I'm a scientist, but I'm so much more than that. I'm a podcaster. And you can do this exercise. Ideally, you want somebody else to walk you through it and step you through it, because normally we sort of stop at about 5 or 6 levels. What you want to do is really exhaust that, because then you get really deep into what motivates you, what drives you, and then put that together in a couple of paragraphs describing you, because that will then help you build relationships with other people. And then we do the why, what, and how in pretty much the way you teach it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second step of our 12-step framework is getting to know who the dream client is. So now we kind of start off with a customer avatar, but we take it to a whole different level because we work on their beliefs and their values and their motivations and what are their pain points or their before state and what are their aspirations or what's their after state, particularly in relation to, one or two key pain points that are things that we perhaps have some skills or some products that we can help with. So that's the second step. And then the third step is working on the message. So how can we get a message that actually communicates with them and starts to build a relationship? And in that, it's really important to understand the customers at a deep level, understand the dream customer at a deep level and where you can find them and how you can connect with them. And then at that point, we kind of do things to start conversations. So I've actually taken a lot of my email sequences and really pruned them down a little bit so that very early on, I invite people, come and have a conversation with me or with us. And at that point, you can build on the understanding, you can start a genuine relationship, you can find out what do they really need, are you a good fit, and you can take it from there. And then the fourth step of the thing is then, delivering that message. Where do you deliver the messages? And you refine that message, of course, from what you've learned from those conversations. And then there's 4 steps after that, which are kind of the lead capture and lead nurturing in the traditional funnel, but I use those as here's the different customer journeys. So somebody will want to come into your world to want to learn. So that's where you give them free information and you make it easy for them to find that information and to apply it. But you're not actually there for them to help them implement it or to hold them accountable yet. Totally. The next one is the relationship one, where there is some of that accountability through a group, through something that's easily scalable. And then the next one is, how do you nurture that relationship? How do you continue that conversation in a way that doesn't have that expectation on the back end, that it's really just, I'm still here for you if you need something. Here's some other stuff that we've just done recently that might be helpful, those kind of things. Yeah. And then the fourth part of that is when they're ready to cross the threshold, how do you make the sale? How do you make it easy for them? That it's just an obvious choice, and also it's really easy for them to take that next step.
Do you mean it doesn't take them 45 minutes to buy a bottle of wine?
That's right.
Got it. Yeah, and so it's so funny.
Ideally, it's one click.
Yeah, one click, right? And for everybody listening.
Also, the button. Here's one of my pet peeves. The button shouldn't say submit.
No.
Because I don't want to submit to anything.
No. I mean, I could do an entire episode on pet peeves that I see on the internet. Like I'll probably do that when I'm done with this challenge, and I'll drink a bottle of wine and record an entire episode of everything that I can't stand when it comes to digital marketing. And I'm sure for those of you listening that know me, you can see why Jurgen and I see eye to eye on everything. We're talking the map of modalities, the customer journey. And by the way, we both created those independently without knowing each other. And then we met after we created them in his Wheel of 12. We basically go through the same thing. But what I want everybody to catch is that nowhere in there was AOV or LTV or conversion rate of the ROAS to squeeze a credit card out. And what I think is so important, and not a lot of people will say it, but I will say it, what you don't understand is that the people that you admire that are telling you that you're one funnel away and you can get your 2 comma club with one funnel and blah, 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 do all of this work, but they refuse to teach it because they don't want to play the long game. So they show you what you can have by playing the short game with you. You're on the transacting end. And then once they move on to something else, then they'll come teach it to you 2 years later and it's already missed. But it's been happening the entire time. Like, I just can't stand this whole like, oh, copy this funnel and blah, blah, blah. Like, let's take your money, but then not give you the real secret sauce. And like, they do have to do this. You have to know. But what they're learning, for all of you listening, is they're learning your pain points. They're learning how to agitate them and basically how to create cognitive dissonance in you to where you tilt in And most of the time, in my opinion, they operate out of scarcity, which is why we end up in the same boat, buying again and again and again, but not buying from want, buying from need. And that's the big distinction. That's the biggest difference.
Some of those really successful people, if you buy one of their courses, the thing you probably can learn most from is the journey that you've actually gone through.
Yep.
Write it all down, map it all out, take screenshots of all the various pages that you went on to, the thank you page, the upsell page, all the stuff that you actually do until you get the product, and then kind of retro engineer that in terms of, what did they actually do here, and how did that make me feel, and what response did that bring about in me? How did I respond to that? And that's actually, so I've bought products where I've done that and I've learnt more out of that than the training program that was actually presented to me.
I've probably spent $100,000 just funnel hacking courses, but I think what's so important to understand is that you're not funnel hacking to copy the funnel. I tell everybody you want to look at what the motivators were. And most of the time when I've gone through those things, I felt like shit, quite frankly, right? You're like, oh, like you can see the scarcity and you're like, all right, I'll click it. But like, I didn't feel good, right? Like the whole thing about customers and customer journeys, like I can't imagine one person being like, you know what, I'm stoked today that I'm going to get somebody to pay me money. And then the first thing they're going to feel is like crap before they get started, right? Like that doesn't go well. And so I think it's really important to understand that the game of marketing is a forever game. It's an infinite game because, as Jurgen said, marketing is a relationship, right? Like relationships don't grow in 1 hour, right? They progress, but they don't bloom. They're not like complete. Like good luck getting in a marriage and saying like, oh, we made it.
Yeah.
Good luck. Let me know how that one goes, right? No, you grow every day. You take a step forward, and that's what marketing is. That's what customer journeys are. And I think it's such a prevalent topic idea, but I think it's something that needs to be talked about more. And I think one of the biggest pieces that's missing in the game of entrepreneurship is patience. I think that that's really one of the biggest missing pieces. It's like, I'm all for scarcity when it's ethical, right? I understand that humans make emotional-based decisions, right? But that also doesn't mean that you need to try to, quote unquote, squeeze out 17 upsells on day one. Like you might have better luck if you help them achieve the goals that they got and promised on day one and course one, and then live them the option to get up to number 2 and then number 3 and actually escalate up a value ladder because they're progressing. They're not just buying. And I don't know.
Yeah, exactly right. There's so much in that. And that's why, I talked about the first 8 steps of our 12-step framework. The next 4 steps are actually post-sale. So if somebody's given you their money, and depending on how big an investment they've made with you, there's going to be buyer's remorse immediately. So one of the things that we talk about is, okay, the next step is actually delivering an outstanding experience. Yep. But that's if they've bought a training program, if they've bought a service, or if they've bought a product, that has to deliver on the promise you've made. But there's a whole lot you can do before that. And that's, first of all, acknowledge them for making the purchase.
Yep.
Point out that I'm still here from you. You've bought from me, and there's a product that's going to come out into your letterbox at some point, but you're still in my world. I'm still here for you. And you might like to watch, for example, if it's a product, you might like to watch this video right now to understand how this product is going to work and what it will do for you and how to best use it. And when they receive the product, then help them actually achieve their goal. That's the big thing in that step. So it's still actually working with them to make sure that whatever it is, product, service, or a training program, that they actually get to their after state, as you put it, so they achieve their goal. And then we talk about how to deliver more value. Now, this is where you've earned the right now to do the upsell, because they've had an awesome experience. You've got an ongoing conversation happening. You're learning more about them. Suddenly you find out that, hey, there's this other problem that they have. We can help you with that as well. So this is where you then offer to deliver more value. And it's kind of like you do a mini 12-step framework inside of that for the next product. And then what we do for the last 2 steps is, first of all, the referral thing. So how do you make it really easy for them to go and tell other people how wonderful you are? Mm-hmm. So you don't, it's not just certainly you want to ask them to do that, but you want to make it really easy. So one of the examples that is another pet peeve of mine, I ask people all the time to review my podcast. And if you've ever done a review of a podcast in Apple Podcasts, it's really difficult.
It's a pain in the butt.
So by asking people to review on Apple Podcasts, I'm actually making it really hard for them to review and give a positive rating to my podcast. Yet most people want to give a positive rating. So I've got to actually make it easy for them to do that and to give me referrals if it's a product or a service. So we have a whole system of how we do that. And then the final step, the 12th step, there's two kind of things about the 12th step. It's how do we scale? How do we get our systems and processes in order that this is going to work and be sustainable for the long term, particularly in relation to those relationships? And also, how do we celebrate this? And how do we celebrate with our customers? So it's kind of like this is a big milestone in the journey, but then the journey keeps going. So it's sort of like a spiral. It might keep going at a different level. So to me, marketing is pervasive in all business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love, like, as you're talking, my 9-step quote unquote model I use for consulting. Like, we hit all the same wickets. I just did it at 9 instead of 12. It makes my heart happy that we got to the same point. And what you said, and I'm going to hone in on this for everybody, because you guys have heard me talk about this a few times independently, but I think one of the stupidest things that people do is when somebody spends any amount of money, the first thing you do is remind them how much they spent while talking about yourself before you deliver what was promised. I don't understand in any way, shape, or form how that is a smart idea whatsoever. Go ahead.
Or you say, hey, you might want to upgrade to the premium level because that gives you all these other benefits.
Oh, yeah, this is my favorite one.
You remind them that what they've bought is actually not going to solve their problem.
Yeah. By the way, you just spent money on something I convinced you to buy, but, I just joking. It's not enough. It's not actually going to get you there. Let me shoot myself in the foot. And I say this all the time. The two most wasted pieces of real estate on the internet came from this. It's thank you pages and transactional emails, because most people leave them default and then they don't put anything on it. My favorite thing to do, and I'm going to tell you right now, is on that thank you page, I give a gift right away. Something that will help you in that moment, even if you have to wait an hour for an email or something to ship in the mail. Like, you made a decision. Like, you made a decision to trust me, to give me your credit card, to give me your email address. And I don't take that lightly. Like, we just agreed to be in a relationship, right? We might not be monogamous yet. You might still be playing the field, but we're in a relationship. And Jurgen, you said it. You said, and I remind them that I'm there. And it's sad that we have to say that, because what happens most of the time is somebody gives you their credit card and they're like, game over. And you never hear from them again. Like, you fall into the black hole with the creepy guy in the van coming to get you next, like handing out candy. And it's so imperative that, like, you have to remember as a business, whether you have a product or whether you have a service, your job is not done when the product is bought or the service is bought. That's when your job starts. Your job is complete when you have fulfilled on what you promised, not when they've bought the product, which means if they don't complete it, that's your damn fault, not theirs. I don't care how you think about it. Build a better container, design a better customer journey. Think through these parts of your funnel. Think through these parts of your customer journey, because Jurgen, what you said is so powerful, and I don't want anybody to miss it, because I haven't covered it like just in an episode at length like it requires. But like, the way that I think about it, and like, use a restaurant analogy, but a dating analogy, the moment you get the credit card, that was just basically, hey, I will agree to go steady with you. Right? Like, it's just you and I now, but you still have to date, you have to court, you have to propose, you got to get her to trust you. Then once she trusts you, you got to let her know that it's safe, that you're going to take care of her. Like, that's what happens in a customer journey. And it's really imperative that you think through that. And the way that you describe it, I think, is absolutely phenomenal. That, you said the first part, which is you make it about them. Some NLP and psychology in there, but yes, always make it about them. Congratulate them, let them know that they took the hardest step, that the work is now, it's easy, they have support, they're on a team, they're in a family, and then you start walking them through the process. And so, yeah, kudos, man. I just think I don't think it's talked about enough, and I love that we're talking about it, because, these are the things that unfortunately 1% of us scream and get, and people are screaming for, but yet the other guys are still getting, attention and buying more traffic, and then they all come like, I can't believe I spent $80,000 of courses from them, and I've never even heard from them. They don't even know my name. Like, I didn't even open one of the courses. I was like, well, you probably got 60 grand in one funnel and they convinced you that you needed all of it. You probably gave them like your firstborn on top of it, you know, and then they disappeared, closed the company. They don't even exist anymore. I don't know.
Yeah.
It drives me
And
nuts.
yeah, and then there's all the marketing automation, which is, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's wonderful. There's so much we can do, because in that step 12 where we look at our systems, that is one thing to get, you know, if you get that right, that means you can scale much more effectively.
Yep.
But most people just go to the defaults, as you said. So, you know, I had one recently where I'd signed up for a program, and I kept getting a daily email from them saying, you know,
Sign up for my
here's
program.
here's why you should sign up for this program. Here's all the benefits. I say, stop cluttering my inbox. I've signed up.
I can't. It happens to me, and it's, I don't know. I'm yawning. It's so boring when they do that. Like it's like, and listen, for everybody thinking like, oh, I don't know tech, that is the easiest thing ever. Like if somebody buys, you don't send them anything else except for what they bought. Like it's so powerful. And like your step 12 is automate. My step 9 is you have to earn the right to automate. That's my last step, right? You have to go through it, button it up, get the journey tight, and then earn the right to automate. Oh man. Yeah. Like, and I think that's an important thing to talk about too, Jurgen, because we talk about marketing the same way. You talk about putting the human back in marketing. I talk about relationships beating algorithms. And I think there's this misnomer that means like you have to do everything yourself. You have to like be omnipresent. And I'm like, no. Automations are good. There are things that you can automate. You can use chatbots. You can use email automations. The difference is that you're open about it, right? Like I love using chatbots. I'm like, hey guys, this is Robot George. Let me know when you get through it and I'll pop in the end, right? And so where do you think, or how do you see like automations playing into successful marketing with heart-centered approach? Like how do you use them? How do you approach them? You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, I think what you touched on there, using the chatbot, but then injecting your personality into that, that's a great example of making it human. And then the danger I see in the chatbots, I mean, there's services, and I've had this experience a couple of times in the last week, where I've signed up to try out a new service. I've, typical, I've struggled to make progress and achieve what I wanted to achieve. I've gone to the chatbot to ask for help. Most of the time, I don't get them live because of the time zone difference.
Yep.
So I've asked a question, then it comes up with 3 suggestions out of their help system, which bear no relation to what I actually asked. And then I've got to leave my email address, and then I have to wait until I get an email, which usually then is the next day because of that time zone difference. So then I'm, that first experience and first touch point with that service or product is bad.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of already saying I'm already disappointed. What I've started doing with those chatbots, so I've got on my website now, there's a service called Video Ask.
I love that service. Typeform made it.
And I've put that on instead of a chat form. And what that is a short video of me saying, welcome to my world. I've got a question for you. Well, I can't remember exactly what I say, but it's sort of along the lines of what brought you here and what can I help you with today, or what are your challenges that maybe you're looking to solve that you came here for. And then there's the option in that to reply by video, reply by audio, or reply by a text message. And to me, that's a really smart way, I think, of using the chatbot. I mean, that is automated. I've done the video. It sort of pops up by itself. It's coded into the website, but it makes it really easy for people to actually type something in and even give me a video, and that will then start a conversation.
Yeah, I love it. I think, I just saw everybody wondering, it's called Video Ask. So the amazing people at Typeform, who makes like some of the best survey software, that's what I use for surveys and questionnaires. They made this platform called Video Ask, and it is extremely powerful and extremely low priced for what it does and how it uses. I mean, you can use it in FAQ sections. It has conditional based logic in it. You can break down video questions and then people respond and they go through like a survey, but with videos. It's really mind blowing when you think about it. But I think what you said, and this is for everybody listening, when you think about automation, when you think about utilizing these tools, it's just important to infuse your personality or human into the tool that you're using, right? Like, nobody's going to be upset that like you're not sitting at the computer 24/7 waiting to respond on video. Like nobody's mad about that. Most of the time you would prefer a faster response than waiting. And so what you can utilize is these things that give context and give personality and help you personalize things for people, which then helps get you better information to better serve them with what they would be looking for and what they need. And by the way, if you run a software company and you don't know that your customers live across the world, you need a 24/7 help desk. And I don't care. I don't want any fucking excuses. Or you use like intercom, and every time a chat comes in, there's one employee or two employees that are assigned to monitor their Slack at night. They get paid overtime, or they work the night shift, and they respond. I'm the same way.
Or they work in different time zones.
I literally, I don't get it. Like what I find mind blowing is these companies that literally like, we're here to support you, run your whole business on our platform, and our customer service hours are 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah.
And I was like, and a lot of them, what's nuts is they started with 24/7, which was smart. They got everybody. Then they went to 9 to 5. And I get like overhead, but when you have people processing $100 million a week through your platform, like, by the way, people launch funnels and products on the weekend. They do webinars on the weekend, and you're not even open. This was this is what like shot Infusionsoft in the foot like 6 years ago. And now I'm watching all these new SaaS platforms follow the same suit. And I'm like, just get ready. Just get ready, because your only USP now has to be like, we'll support you 24/7, and it's coming. Oh, I don't know. Jurgen, I think we should have, we're going to have to do another podcast on all the pet peeves.
That's certainly one of the systems and processes aspects that I, that we work on in that step 12. It's, how can you support customers around the clock? And it's as simple as having, a team of people that live in different time zones, so they can work 9 to 5, but they hand off when they get to 5 o'clock as the end of their working day. They hand off to the next time zone.
Yep.
And you have systems in place that they know exactly how to answer all the questions. They live your values, so that when they're interacting with customers, they're actually interacting the same way you would interact, so customers feel that they're having a consistent experience with that brand. So all of those things.
Yeah.
But coming back to automation, I mean, you said something there about video ask where you can have sequences and so on. I think one of the things that I like to do before I get into automation is actually map out the process and map it out from the end. So say, well, what's the outcome that I want, and how do I get there? So where am I now? Map out each step, and then map out the different branch points or decision spots. And that's where then with the automation, some of these, whether it's an email sequence or whether it's video ask, or even in the chatbot, some of them allow you to do this. So you have decision points depending on the response of the person, whether they click on one link in the email, then they get a sequence of different emails, or whether they've actually bought that product, then they, instead of getting the sequence that's still selling that product, they get the sequence that says, here's how to use that product, here's the best way to get a result from this product. So I like to do that, and that allows me to visualize that, and then I can build it into whatever automation platform that I'm using.
Yeah, I find that most of the tech challenges, quote unquote, that people have is just from not planning it out. My favorite thing is I just grab a stack of stickies and I write every step that I want to happen on sticky. So when I'm designing like a 90-day email sequence, I normally have 90 stickies. I'm like, okay, and I just put topics on them, right? Like I want to hit this topic, and then I want this to feed this topic, and then I can just reorder them before I have it. And then I'm like, hey, this is what I want it to look like. And then the how guy's like, oh yeah, it'll take me 20 minutes and it'll be done, right? Like, I think when you really nail, the why and the what, the how will always figure itself out. And when anything with a customer journey, you have to think through, like, not only what's going to happen today, they're going to come in, they're going to buy from you, they're going to give you their email, but what's going to happen tomorrow, a week from now, 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now. And you might not have to have it all planned for, but you have to account for it. You have to know it's coming, because I'm going to tell you right now, the biggest mistake that you can make in business and marketing is have somebody come in and trust you and then go radio silent on them. That is not something that you want to be doing. And so I love that logic of kind of building that out and mapping that out. And so I feel like we can talk about every step of both of our models and go deep into it, but I want to give everybody something juicy from you. So what is like one strategy or tactic or thing you're doing? And I know you talked about video ask, but I want another one that you're doing right now, like in your business, that fills you up, makes you happy, makes your heart happy, and has had like positive results in your business, something you're trying, something you're working on. Like, I would just love to hear something current that you're doing.
All right. Well, one thing, and this is very early days at this stage, but we've got our podcast that's been running for over 6 years now,
Wow.
about episode 340 something. So there's well over 300 conversations that I've had with awesome people like yourself. And that always inspires me. Every time I come off a conversation like this one, for example, I'm inspired and I'm excited. And I get the privilege to speak to these people all across the world, but also then to share that with my audience. And I think, well, I then do some things to further that relationship. So to me, that's a whole marketing exercise in itself. So just because somebody's come on my show as a guest, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it and I say goodbye. It's like I like to continue that relationship and a conversation with them. But I'm wondering, how can I make that person more accessible to my audience? So I'm playing with some ideas there of building a community of people that it's kind of like a masterclass, but masterclass isn't really the right term, of where my guests could come on and add value in conversations to a broader community. And of course, that exposes them to a new audience, hopefully, and might lead to some relationships there, but it certainly will add value to my community. So that's something that I'm really excited by. I've got some ideas how to do that. I've been doing lots of drawings and post-it notes on the wall and whiteboard stuff, but it's early days yet, as I say.
I love it. No, I love it. I think it's such a good idea. Like you've extracted so much knowledge and value in relationships, and having a place to bring everybody together to extract what they want and then add value. I love it. Like building a community around the podcast, who's been on it, the listeners. I think it's an amazing idea. And so as you think about now, like what we talked about, we both believe in human-based marketing, customer journeys, adding value, playing the reciprocity game for the right reasons. It's not reciprocity if you're agendized, by the way, just to be really fucking clear. We're playing it now. So for everybody listening, what do you think is like one thing that they could do today, like in their marketing, in their business, in their customer journey, like no matter what, like go focus on, put it into practice, try it, think about a question to ask that would positively benefit everybody?
Go talk to your customers.
Yes. Yes. Bow down, mic drop.
Have a meaningful conversation. So particularly in this day and age where everybody's impacted by COVID in some way. Businesses are impacted because we can't meet in person in most parts of the world. So connect with them, because you can use online tools like we're doing now. Easy to connect with them, or there is a thing called the phone. Connect with them there. Get on video if you can, and just find out what are their challenges right now. What are they stuck with right now? Have a conversation around what you're stuck with as well, and what you're doing to, like, for example, I've got clients that their whole business was based on in-person workshops and in-person meetings. And of course, once we got to lockdown, their cash flow dried up instantly. So that's their immediate problem, is how can I generate some cash flow with my expertise, knowing that I can't do what I have been doing in the past. And that's impacted on me, because I've said to them, well, stop paying me, because that's going to help your cash flow a little bit right now, but I'm still here for you. So that's one of my challenges. How do I manage my cash flow going through that? So share that with your clients, and share what you're doing for the problems you're having, and then have that meaningful conversation. You'll learn so much.
Yeah, that's the best one. That's the best one. I do this. One of my favorite things, like Instagram, every time I get a new follower, I literally DM them a video of me, like right off. I'm like, oh my God, thank you for following me. Nice to meet you. And they're like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. And then there was one, because I do all my own outreach. I love it. And this was hilarious. Like a week ago, you'll appreciate this. I sent a message like, oh my God, thanks for adding me. I checked out your profile. That food looked amazing. Let me know about your business and how I can support. And she's like, man, this is a really good bot, but I know this isn't you. And so then I opened my phone. I recorded a video of my middle finger in the air. And I was like, this middle finger means nothing but love, but I am not a robot. This is really me. And then she's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I get so many bots. Oh, that's such a good one. And I absolutely love that. And, I think the ending thought for me, based on what you said, is that people don't buy products, they buy relationships, right? They buy from the best relationship, and being a human is what creates the best relationship. When you are a human and when you approach your customers, you get on the call with your customers, when you share your thoughts, your struggles, and they share theirs, that creates an authentic human connection. That is greater than any funnel, any marketing ad, any strategy, any tactic, because that's like super glue. Like that doesn't go away, right? That's firing on neural pathways of the tribalness of our human body.
Yeah, and going back to my wine story,
Yeah,
there was a relationship built up through our experience of being there, and that got me through that painful process of buying online, because there was that relationship. I thought, okay, these guys are worth it. I know, the emotional connection, of course, for me to the wine and to my son. So I went through that process, and I'm prepared to forgive something. So, we all make mistakes.
Totally.
And customers will be prepared to forgive some of those mistakes, provided you own up to them and say, I'll fix that. But they will be prepared to forgive that if there's that relationship there that you've built.
Totally. Yeah. The one thing we say is you can only ever innovate on product experience or customer experience, right? And like Apple's a good example, because they make it a pain in the ass to buy anything new that's coming out, but yet we all still do it. They sell out pre-orders. We have to buy it a month in advance, wait in lines, pick it up. And so, it's just really important. And to this winery, because I'm going to find you and send you this interview, and I'll send you a free hour of time as well. Like, thanks for having such amazing customer experiences. And I think, Jurgen, too, the one thing with that is I used to take feedback like this personal, but then I realized that's a gift, right? Because you having that experience as a customer and sharing it gives them a tool to make it better and make it better and make it better. And I think that that's the game of business and marketing. I don't remember your full sentence. I'll have you share it when we close again, of like your distinction of marketing. But really, the more that we get this feedback as business owners, as entrepreneurs, the more that we post into the world and get slapped in the face, get no responses, get lots of responses, the more we edit our craft, we grow, we learn, we iterate, so that we can continue to grow on this journey for ourselves and for our customers. And so it's a lesson that took me a while to learn, but I think it's a really, really good one. And so thanks for sharing all that feedback as well. Yeah. And so what was your distillation in your zone of genius the other day?
So marketing is the art and science of creating and sustaining exceptional customer experiences and relationships.
I love it. I love it. I want it on a bumper sticker, because I won't ever remember that. I've been hit in the head too many times, but I love that. That's the science brain in you, which makes me happy. And just so everybody knows, and Jurgen yourself, I feel like I talked a lot this episode, but I get really fucking excited talking to you about marketing. So for everybody, if I went on long tangents and diatribes, it's because I'm like an excited little puppy dog when somebody else speaks marketing the way that I do. Like, I just want to go, 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 go. And there's probably going to be episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because I want to unpack like 8 of these ideas with Jurgen. So Jurgen, thanks for being as excited and patient with me at the same time and coming on the show today.
Well, thanks for having me on, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. And thanks for all that you do too.
Yeah, of course.
There's you're showing up now with that genuine giving mindset, without any expectation in return, through the podcast, through your videos, through the free training that you have online, through your Facebook communities, and of course, if for those that are in the training programs, and I'm sure in your mastermind is the same, that there's just so much value there. So keep doing what you're doing, and
I appreciate it, man.
This has been fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And for everybody that's still made it to this far, just remember to go find Jurgen. The website is innovabuzz.com, INNOVABUZZ, and the podcast is InnovaBiz. Got it?
No, the other way around.
Okay, so what's the podcast name?
The podcast is innovabuzz.com.
Okay. InnovaBuzz.
The business is InnovaBiz.
Got it.
And you need .com.au for that one.
I'm just going to be dyslexic in my tiredness today. So you got to, hey, listen, you can't go wrong either way. Go find one of them. InnovaBiz, InnovaBuzz. Yep. Find them all, search them both. Go check out Jurgen, send him a message of love. Jurgen, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for coming on and sharing all your wisdom with the world.
Thanks, George. It was a privilege to speak with you.
Yeah, man, of course. So, guys, remember, this is another episode of the Mind of George Show. I'm sure there's an outro coming if I go record one, but if not, because I might forget, remember that relationships will always beat algorithms, and I will see you guys in the next show.